The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the mahogany dining table as I sat there, watching my wife Lisa perform her usual act for her parents. Her father's 70th birthday dinner was supposed to be a celebration, but like everything else in the Hartwell family mansion, it felt more like a carefully orchestrated performance. "So, Michael," her mother Patricia said, dabbing her lips with a linen napkin, "how's that little auto shop of yours doing?" Little auto shop. After 15 years of marriage, she still couldn't bring herself to acknowledge that my business employed 12 people and turned a healthy profit. I smiled politely. "Business is good, Patricia. We're expanding into the building next door." Lisa barely looked up from her phone, scrolling through Instagram while her parents tried to make conversation. Our 17-year-old daughter Emma sat beside her, equally absorbed in her device. The apple didn't fall far from the tree. "That's wonderful," Patricia said, with the enthusiasm of someone discussing root canal surgery. "And Lisa, dear, how are things at the firm?" Now Lisa perked up. "Fantastic. I'm up for senior partner next year. The youngest woman in the firm's history to be considered." She shot me a look that said, "See, this is what success looks like." Her father Charles raised his wine glass. To Lisa, always knew she'd go places. I raised my glass dutifully, though the wine tasted like vinegar in my mouth. 20 years I'd known this family, and I was still the blue-collar guy who'd somehow tricked their precious daughter into marriage. The conversation drifted to local gossip, neighborhood happenings, the usual suburban drama that seemed to fascinate the Hartwells. Then Patricia mentioned something that made me freeze. "Oh, Lisa, you'll never guess who I saw at the country club yesterday. Derek Morrison. Remember him? Your boyfriend from college?" Lisa's head snapped up from her phone, suddenly very interested. "Derek? Really? What's he doing back in town?" "Apparently he's opening some luxury car dealership downtown. Divorced now, Patricia Whitman told me. Lost everything in the settlement, poor thing." I watched Lisa's face carefully. There was something there. A flicker of interest, maybe even excitement. After 15 years of marriage, you learn to read the signs. "Derek Morrison," Emma said, looking up from her phone. "Mom, isn't he the guy you dated before Dad?" "Ancient history," Lisa said, but she was smiling now, not her usual polite dinner smile. Something different, something that made my stomach clench. Charles refilled his wine glass. "Wasn't he the one who wanted to marry you? What was it, senior year?" "He proposed," Lisa said, her voice taking on a dreamy quality I hadn't heard in years. "Big romantic gesture at graduation. Ring and everything." "But you turned him down," Patricia added. "Said you weren't ready for marriage." Lisa laughed, a sound that seemed to echo off the dining room walls. "I wasn't ready for marriage then. I was 22, wanted to see the world, experience life." She glanced at me briefly. Different priorities. The implication hung in the air like smoke. She'd turned down Derek because she wasn't ready for marriage, but married me 3 years later. The math wasn't hard to figure out. I'd been the safe choice, the backup plan. "He was quite the catch," Charles mused. "Remember that red Porsche he drove? And his family had money, old money." "Dad," Lisa said, but she was still smiling. "I'm just saying, if he hadn't been so eager to settle down, things might have been different." Emma looked between her mother and grandfather with the kind of fascination teenagers reserve for particularly juicy gossip. "So, Mom, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd said yes?" Lisa set down her wine glass and looked directly at me for the first time all evening. That's when I saw it. The smirk. Not quite a smile, something more knowing, more cruel. "You know what?" she said, her voice carrying clearly across the silent table. "I think about it sometimes. Derek was different, exciting, passionate." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You knew I'd choose my ex if he ever asked." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because they were unexpected. I'd felt Lisa pulling away for months, but because of where she chose to say them. In front of her parents, our daughter, at a family dinner. The casual cruelty of it, the public humiliation, the complete disrespect. Patricia gasped softly. "Lisa, that's not funny, dear." But Lisa wasn't backing down. If anything, the shocked expressions around the table seemed to embolden her. "I'm just being honest. We all know Derek was the one that got away. If he walked through that door right now and asked me to leave with him," she shrugged, that smirk never leaving her face. "Well, let's just say it wouldn't be a difficult decision." Charles cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should discuss something else." But Lisa was on a roll now, 20 years of resentment spilling out like wine from a broken glass. "I mean, come on. We all settled, didn't we? I settled for stability instead of passion, for safe instead of exciting. Derek represented everything I gave up when I chose this." She gestured vaguely in my direction. Emma was staring at her mother with a mixture of shock and fascination. Patricia looked like she might faint. Charles was studying his wine glass as if it held the secrets of the universe. And me? I sat there processing what my wife had just said. Not just the words themselves, but the delivery, the smirk, the casual dismissal of our entire marriage, our family, our life together, in front of our daughter, in front of her parents, as if I wasn't even worth the courtesy of a private conversation. I finished chewing the bite of roast beef in my mouth, swallowed, and set down my fork. The silence stretched across the table like a taut wire, everyone waiting to see how I'd respond to my wife's public declaration that she'd rather be with another man. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Every eye in the room was on me now, waiting for the explosion, the argument, the scene that would give them something to talk about for months. Instead, I smiled. "Charles, Patricia," I said, my voice perfectly calm, "thank you for a lovely dinner. The roast was excellent, and the wine was superb. Happy birthday, Charles. I hope you have many more." I walked around the table, kissed Patricia on the cheek like I had at every family gathering for the past 20 years, and shook Charles's hand. "I'll see myself out." Lisa's smirk faltered slightly. This wasn't the reaction she'd expected. She'd wanted drama, wanted me to beg or argue or make a scene that would justify whatever she was planning to do next. "Michael," she called as I reached the dining room doorway. "Where are you going?" I turned back to look at her one last time. She was still sitting there, still smirking, still so sure of herself, still so certain that I'd roll over and take whatever she dished out, just like I had for years. "Home," I said simply. "To pack your things." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The drive home took exactly 12 minutes. 12 minutes to process 20 years of marriage dissolving in a smirk. 12 minutes to realize that my wife had just publicly humiliated me in front of our daughter and her parents. 12 minutes to understand that this wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This was who Lisa really was. I pulled into our driveway at 8:15 p.m., the automatic garage door closing behind me with a mechanical finality that seemed appropriate. Our house, my house technically, since Lisa had never wanted her name on the deed for tax reasons, sat quiet and empty. For the first time in years, the silence felt peaceful instead of oppressive. I'd bought this place 5 years ago when the business really took off. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2-car garage, and a workshop in the basement where I could tinker with engines and think. Lisa had complained it wasn't prestigious enough, wasn't in the right neighborhood, didn't have enough curb appeal for her colleagues. But it was ours. Or so I'd thought. I started in our bedroom. Lisa's walk-in closet was a monument to her success. Designer suits, expensive shoes, jewelry that cost more than most people's cars. I pulled out every suitcase we owned and began methodically packing. Dresses, blouses, pants, all folded neatly and placed carefully in the luggage. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was operating on pure, cold logic. Her jewelry box came next. The diamond earrings I'd bought her for our 10th anniversary. The necklace from our trip to Italy. The tennis bracelet she'd insisted she needed for the firm's Christmas party. All of it went into a separate case, wrapped in tissue paper like I was preparing for a move. The bathroom was next. Makeup, skincare products, hair tools, medications. Lisa had always been high maintenance, and her half of the bathroom looked like a department store cosmetics counter. Everything went into boxes, organized and labeled. By 9:30, I had filled 6 large suitcases and 8 boxes with Lisa's belongings. Clothes, shoes, books, personal items, photographs, everything that belonged to her or reminded me of her. I even packed the coffee mug she used every morning, the one with "World's Best Mom" that Emma had given her years ago. I carried everything outside, making multiple trips to stack the luggage and boxes neatly on the front porch. The neighbors' houses were mostly dark, people settling in for the evening, unaware that a marriage was ending on their quiet suburban street. The locksmith arrived at 9:45. Jerry Kowalski, a guy I'd known for years through the business network. He didn't ask questions when I called, just said he'd be right over. "Need all the locks changed," I told him as he pulled his van into the driveway. Front door, back door, garage, everything. Jerry nodded, unloading his equipment. "How many sets of keys you want?" "Just one." He worked quickly and efficiently, drilling out the old locks and installing new deadbolts. High-security models that couldn't be picked or bumped. While he worked, I went through the house one more time, removing Lisa's name from everything. The mailbox, the doorbell nameplate, the emergency contact list on the refrigerator. "All done," Jerry said, handing me a single set of keys. "That'll be $400. I paid him in cash and watched his van disappear down the street. Then I sat on my front steps, surrounded by my wife's belongings, and waited. Lisa arrived at 10:23 p.m., her BMW pulling into the driveway with the aggressive confidence that characterized everything she did. She was still smirking as she got out of the car, probably thinking she'd made her point at dinner and now we'd have a nice fight that would end with makeup and her getting her way, like always. The smirk died when she saw the suitcases. She stopped halfway up the walkway, her high heels clicking to a halt on the concrete. For a long moment, she just stared at the neat pile of luggage and boxes, her brain trying to process what she was seeing. "What is this?" she asked, her voice uncertain for the first time all evening. I didn't answer. I just watched as she approached the front door, fumbling in her purse for her keys. She found them, selected the house key, and tried to insert it into the lock. It didn't fit. She tried again, thinking maybe she had the wrong key. Still nothing. The confusion on her face was almost comical. This wasn't part of her script. "Michael," she said, her voice rising slightly, "what did you do?" "You made your choice at dinner," I said calmly. "I'm just helping you follow through." She tried the key again, then started pounding on the door. "Open this door right now. This is my house too." "Actually, it's not. Check the deed." The truth hit her like a slap. In all our years of marriage, Lisa had never wanted her name on any of our properties. Better for taxes, she'd said. Easier for her business accounting. Now she was discovering the downside of that decision. "You can't do this," she screamed, abandoning any pretense of dignity. "I live here. My stuff is here." I gestured to the suitcases. "Your stuff is right there." Neighbors' lights were starting to come on. Mrs. Patterson from next door peered through her curtains. The Johnsons' porch light flicked on. Lisa was making enough noise to wake the entire street, but she didn't seem to care. "Where am I supposed to go?" she demanded. "I don't know. Maybe Derek has room." The mention of her ex-boyfriend's name made her face flush red. "I was joking. It was just dinner conversation." Didn't sound like a joke to me. Or to your parents? Or to Emma? She pulled out her phone and started dialing. I could hear it ringing, then going to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. He's not answering, she said, more to herself than to me. Shocking. She tried calling her parents next. I could hear her mother's voice through the phone, sharp and disapproving. The conversation was brief and ended with Lisa screaming, "Fine," before hanging up. "They won't come get me," she said, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. Can't say I blame them. She tried a few friends next, but it was after 10:30 on a weeknight. Most went to voicemail. The ones who answered were clearly annoyed at being woken up and offered various excuses about why they couldn't help. By 11 p.m., Lisa was sitting on her suitcases, crying. The smirk was long gone, replaced by the kind of desperate panic that comes with realizing you've miscalculated badly. "Michael, please," she said, her voice breaking. "Can we just talk about this? I didn't mean what I said." "Yes, you did. It was the wine talking. I was showing off for my parents. You know how they are." "I know how you are." A police car turned onto our street, its headlights sweeping across the lawn. Officer Martinez climbed out, a guy I'd met at various community events. He looked tired and annoyed at having to deal with a domestic dispute. "Evening, folks. Got a call about a disturbance." "No disturbance, officer," I said. "Just my wife collecting her belongings." Lisa jumped up from the suitcases. "He changed the locks. He threw me out of my own house." Officer Martinez looked at me. "That true?" "It's my house. She's not on the deed, the mortgage, or any of the utility bills. I asked her to leave and she refused, so I called you." The officer sighed and pulled out his notepad. "Ma'am, do you have any documentation showing you live here? Lease agreement, utility bills, anything with your name and this address?" Lisa's face went pale. It's my husband's house, but I live here. We're married." "Marriage doesn't automatically give you property rights, ma'am, if your name's not on the deed." "This is insane," Lisa screamed. "You can't just throw your wife out." "Actually, I can," I said quietly, "especially when she publicly announces she'd rather be with another man." Officer Martinez looked between us, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. "Look, folks, this is really a civil matter. Ma'am, you need to find somewhere else to stay tonight. You can contact a lawyer tomorrow about your rights." "I don't have anywhere to go." "Hotel, friend's house, family member, but you can't stay here if the property owner doesn't want you here." Lisa looked at me with something approaching desperation. "Michael, please, don't do this. Think about Emma." "I am thinking about Emma. I'm thinking about what you just taught her about marriage, about commitment, about respecting your spouse." The officer waited while Lisa loaded her suitcases into her car, making multiple trips and muttering angrily to herself. When she was finished, she rolled down her window. "This isn't over," she said. "Yes, it is." I watched her taillights disappear down the street, then thanked Officer Martinez and went inside my house. My house. For the first time in years, the silence felt like peace instead of tension. I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my recliner, thinking about the look on Lisa's face when she realized her key didn't work. The confusion, then panic, then desperate anger. She'd expected me to roll over like I always did, to take her abuse and beg for forgiveness. Instead, I'd given her exactly what she said she wanted: freedom to choose Derek over me. My phone started buzzing with texts and calls, but I turned it off. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and drama and complications. Tonight, I was going to enjoy the quiet. I woke up at 6 a.m., same as always. For a moment, lying in the empty bed, I almost forgot what had happened. Then I saw Lisa's empty nightstand, her missing pillow, the absence of her morning routine, sounds from the bathroom, and it all came flooding back. The house felt different, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted from the foundation. I made coffee, just enough for one, and sat at the kitchen table reading the news on my tablet. No one demanding I hurry up. No one complaining about the coffee being too strong. No one scrolling through social media while ignoring me completely. It was peaceful. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I scrolled through them over breakfast, a mix of concerned friends, angry relatives, and 3 messages from Lisa herself, sent from the Marriott downtown at 2 a.m. "We need to talk. This is insane. Call me. You're going to regret this." The last one made me smile. Even in crisis, Lisa couldn't resist making threats. At 7:30, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a process server, a thin man in his 50s holding a manila envelope. "Michael Brennan?" "That's me." "Divorce papers. You've been served." I signed for the envelope and closed the door, impressed, despite myself. Lisa had worked fast. She must have called her lawyer friends as soon as she checked into the hotel. I opened the papers and read through them while finishing my coffee. Irreconcilable differences. Abandonment. Cruel and unusual treatment. She was claiming I'd thrown her out without cause, that I'd been emotionally abusive, that I'd hidden assets. Standard divorce boilerplate, but it showed she was playing hardball. What she'd forgotten, apparently, was the prenuptial agreement we'd signed before our wedding. Lisa had insisted on it, actually, worried that my business debts might affect her credit. The prenup was ironclad, drafted by her own law firm, and included a very specific clause about infidelity and public humiliation. I called my lawyer, David Kellerman, a guy I'd known since high school who'd built a solid practice handling business and family law. "Mike? Jesus, I heard about last night. Half the town's talking about it." "Already?" "Patricia Hartwell called her bridge club at midnight. By morning, everyone knows Lisa said she'd leave you for her ex." Small towns. You had to love the efficiency of the gossip network. "I need you to file a response to her divorce petition. And David? Invoke the prenup." "The whole thing?" "Especially Clause 15. David whistled softly. Clause 15 was Lisa's own addition to the prenup, designed to protect her reputation if I ever cheated or publicly embarrassed her. It never occurred to her that it would work both ways. "That's going to hurt. She gets almost nothing if Clause 15 applies." She should have thought of that before she decided to humiliate me at a family dinner. I spent the rest of the morning at the shop, losing myself in the familiar routine of diagnostics and repairs. My guys knew something was up. Word travels fast in a small town, but they were smart enough not to ask questions. We had a full schedule, 3 cars needing major work, and a dozen smaller jobs. Around noon, my daughter Emma showed up. She walked into the shop wearing her school clothes, her face red and puffy from crying. My heart broke a little seeing her like that. Whatever was happening between Lisa and me, Emma was an innocent victim. "Dad?" she said, her voice small and uncertain. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over to her. "Hey, sweetheart, shouldn't you be in school?" I couldn't concentrate. Everyone's talking about last night, about what Mom said. Of course they were. In the age of social media, family drama spread faster than wildfire. Someone at that dinner had probably posted about it before dessert was served. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," I said. "Is it true? Would Mom really leave us for Derek?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Not leave you, but leave us. Emma understood that if Lisa chose Derek, she'd be choosing a completely different life, one that might not include a teenage daughter. "I don't know, Emma. You'd have to ask your mother." I tried. She's not answering her phone. We sat in my office, Emma curled up in the old leather chair I'd salvaged from a junkyard years ago. She looked so young, so vulnerable, and I felt a surge of anger at Lisa for putting her through this. "Dad, are you really getting divorced?" "It looks that way." "Because of what she said?" "Because of what she meant." Emma was quiet for a long time, processing. Finally, she looked up at me with eyes that seemed older than her 17 years. "I don't blame you. she said. What she said was horrible. In front of Grandma and Grandpa, in front of me. It was like we didn't even matter. You matter, Emma. You matter more than anything. But not to Mom. I didn't know how to answer that. Lisa loved Emma in her way, but it was a selfish love, conditional on Emma reflecting well on her. If Derek offered Lisa the life she thought she deserved, would there be room for a teenage daughter in that picture? Your mom is going through something right now, I said carefully. She's confused, making bad decisions. That doesn't mean she doesn't love you. It feels like it. Emma stayed at the shop for the rest of the afternoon, doing homework in my office while I worked. It felt natural having her there, like we were a team. Around 5 p.m., she looked up from her textbook. Dad, can I stay with you? I mean, when the divorce is final? Of course. This is your home too. Good. Because I don't want to live with Mom and Derek. The casual way she said it told me Emma had already figured out where this was heading. Lisa wasn't just leaving me, she was leaving both of us for a fantasy of what her life could have been. That evening, I got a call from Patricia Hartwell. Michael, dear, I owe you an apology. Lisa's mother had never called me dear in 20 years of marriage. Crisis apparently brought out her better nature. You don't owe me anything, Patricia. Yes, I do. What Lisa said last night was inexcusable. Charles and I are mortified. We raised her better than that. She's an adult. She makes her own choices. Still, to humiliate you like that in front of Emma, it was cruel. Unnecessarily cruel. I could hear the pain in her voice. Patricia might be a snob, but she genuinely loved her granddaughter and understood that Lisa's actions had consequences beyond our marriage. How is Emma handling this? She asked. She's hurt, confused. She can't understand how her mother could say something like that. Neither can I. Lisa called this morning, demanding we support her in the divorce. She seems to think what she said was perfectly reasonable. And? I told her she made her bed and now she has to lie in it. Charles won't even speak to her. It occurred to me that Lisa had managed to alienate everyone who mattered to her in the span of 12 hours. Her parents, her daughter, her husband, all casualties of her moment of cruel honesty. Patricia, I want you to know that whatever happens between Lisa and me, you and Charles will always be Emma's grandparents. This doesn't change that. I heard her start to cry softly. Thank you, Michael. That means more than you know. After hanging up, I sat in my quiet house and thought about the chain reaction Lisa had started with her smirk. She'd wanted to hurt me, to assert her superiority, to make it clear that I was the consolation prize in her life story. Instead, she'd destroyed everything she claimed to value: her marriage, her relationship with her daughter, her parents' respect, her reputation in the community. All for a man who hadn't even bothered to return her desperate phone calls. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Derek Morrison. We should talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. If Derek wanted to talk, he could find me. I had a feeling I'd be seeing him soon enough. Derek Morrison showed up at my shop 3 days later, driving a silver Porsche that probably cost more than most people's houses. He parked right in front of the bay doors, blocking access for my customers, which told me everything I needed to know about his character. I was under the hood of a Ford Explorer when I heard his car door slam. My mechanic, Tommy, looked up from the transmission he was rebuilding and whistled low. Nice ride. Asshole parking, though. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked outside. Derek was leaning against his car, arms crossed, wearing an expensive suit that looked out of place in my working-class neighborhood. He was handsome in that generic way that money could buy. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, perfect tan. Everything about him screamed, trust fund baby. You must be Michael, he said, extending his hand like we were meeting at a country club instead of the parking lot where he'd just insulted my business. I ignored the handshake. You're blocking my bay. This won't take long. He looked around at my shop with barely concealed disdain. Nice place, very authentic. What do you want, Derek? To talk about Lisa. What about her? He smiled, the kind of smug expression that made me want to introduce his face to my fist. Come on, Michael. We both know how this ends. Lisa and I have history, real history. What you two had was just marking time. Is that what she told you? She didn't have to tell me anything. I could see it in her eyes at dinner the other night, the regret, the longing for what we had. You weren't at dinner. His smile faltered slightly. I heard about it. The whole town's talking about what she said, about choosing me. And yet here you are, talking to me instead of running away with her. That hit home. Derek's confident facade cracked just enough for me to see the uncertainty underneath. Whatever Lisa had told him, whatever promises she'd made, he wasn't as sure of himself as he wanted to appear. Look, he said, dropping the fake friendliness. Lisa deserves better than this. He gestured at my shop, my life, everything I'd built. She's a brilliant lawyer, sophisticated, cultured. She should be with someone who can appreciate those qualities. Someone like you? Someone exactly like me. I had to admire his arrogance, even as it made me sick. This was a man who'd never worked a real job, never built anything with his hands, never struggled for anything in his life, and he thought that made him better than me. Here's what's going to happen, Derek continued. You're going to make this divorce easy. No fighting, no drama, just sign the papers and let Lisa move on with her life. The life she was meant to have. And why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll make things very difficult for you. I have connections in this town, Michael. Money, influence, friends in high places. I can make your business disappear, your reputation crumble. One word from me and you'll be lucky to get a job changing oil at Jiffy Lube. The threat hung in the air between us like gasoline fumes. Derek was smiling again, confident he'd played his winning card. He probably thought I'd fold like every other working-class guy who'd been intimidated by his family's money. He was wrong. You done? I asked. I'm just getting started. Good, because I've got something to say too. I stepped closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, close enough to smell his expensive cologne, close enough to make him nervous. Lisa called you after I threw her out, I said quietly, multiple times. You didn't answer, did you? His smile twitched. She went to a hotel, Derek, alone, crying, desperate. And where were you? Probably at home, trying to figure out how to handle your crazy ex-girlfriend who just blew up her marriage for you. That's not... She embarrassed herself, humiliated her daughter, destroyed her relationship with her parents, all because she thought you'd come riding to her rescue. But you didn't, did you? You let her twist in the wind for 3 days before you worked up the courage to come threaten me. Derek's face was flushing red now. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. You're not here because you want Lisa. You're here because you're scared of what happens if you don't take her. She's made her choice public, Derek. The whole town knows she picked you. If you reject her now, you look like the villain. Shut up. So you're trapped. Take the crazy woman who destroyed her family for you, or be known as the guy who led her on and abandoned her. Either way, your reputation takes a hit. I said shut up. Derek shoved me, his hands hitting my chest with enough force to make me take a step back. It wasn't much of a push, but it was enough. Assault, battery, in front of witnesses. Tommy and my other guys had stopped working and were watching now. Mrs. Chen from the grocery store next door was looking through her window. A couple of customers in the waiting area had come outside to see what the commotion was about. Derek realized his mistake immediately. The color drained from his face as he understood what he'd just done. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I didn't mean... I smiled. Yes, you did. Then I hit him. It wasn't a sucker punch. Derek saw it coming. But he'd probably never been in a real fight in his life. while I'd spent 4 years boxing in the army and another 20 settling disputes in the kind of bars where auto mechanics drank. My right cross caught him flush on the jaw, spinning him around and dropping him to his knees beside his precious Porsche. He stayed down for a moment, shaking his head, blood trickling from his split lip. "You hit me," he said, like he couldn't believe it. "You shoved me first, self-defense." Derek struggled to his feet, using his car for support. His perfect suit was dirty now, his perfect hair messed up, his perfect face marked by my fist. He looked like what he was, a spoiled rich boy who'd just learned that money couldn't protect him from everything. "I'll have you arrested for assault," he said. "Go ahead. I've got 6 witnesses who saw you put your hands on me first." Tommy stepped forward, wrench still in his hand. "That's right. Rich boy started it." The other mechanics nodded agreement. Mrs. Chen was already back inside, probably calling her husband to tell him about the fight outside Mike's shop. By evening, the whole neighborhood would know that Derek Morrison had gotten his ass kicked. Derek climbed into his Porsche, his hands shaking as he started the engine. He rolled down the window and leaned out. "This isn't over," he said. "Yeah, it is." He peeled out of the parking lot, tires squealing, leaving rubber marks on my asphalt. I watched him disappear down the street, then went back to work on the Ford Explorer. "Boss," Tommy said, "that guy's gonna cause trouble." "Let him try." But I knew Tommy was right. Derek Morrison wasn't the type to accept humiliation gracefully. He'd be back, and next time he wouldn't come alone. I was counting on it. That evening, Emma called me from her mother's hotel room. "Dad, Mom wants to talk to you." "Put her on." There was a pause, some muffled conversation, then Lisa's voice came on the line. "Michael, we need to discuss this situation like adults." "What situation?" "Don't play dumb. Derek told me what happened at your shop today." "You mean when he threatened me and then assaulted me?" "He said you attacked him." "He's lying. But then, you two seem to have that in common." Lisa's voice rose. "I want to come home, Michael. I want to work this out." The desperation in her voice was unmistakable. Derek had obviously made it clear that he wasn't interested in playing white knight to her damsel in distress. Now she was trying to crawl back, hoping I'd forget her public humiliation and take her back. "You made your choice, Lisa. At dinner, in front of our daughter and your parents. You chose Derek." "I was angry. I was trying to hurt you because you've been distant and cold and now you want to come home because Derek doesn't want you." The silence on the other end told me I'd hit the target. "That's not true," she said finally. "Isn't it? When's the last time you talked to him? When's the last time he returned your calls?" More silence. "Face it, Lisa. You gambled everything on a man who was never interested in playing your game. You lost." "Please, Michael. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to fix this." "The only thing that would fix this is a time machine, and even then, I'm not sure I'd want to go back." I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring new complications, new drama, new attempts by Lisa and Derek to manipulate the situation to their advantage. But tonight, I was going to enjoy the quiet of my empty house and plan my next move. Because Derek was right about one thing. This wasn't over. It was just getting started. The video appeared on social media 3 days after my confrontation with Derek. Someone had recorded the entire encounter on their phone, probably Mrs. Chen's teenage grandson, who was always hanging around the grocery store playing on his device. The footage was crystal clear. Derek threatening me, shoving me, then getting knocked down with one punch. By the time I saw it, the video had already been shared hundreds of times with captions like, "Rich boy gets reality check," and "Don't mess with Mike's auto." My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. "Mike, you seen Facebook this morning?" It was my buddy Rick from the boxing gym. "Just saw it." "Dude, you're famous. That video's got like 2,000 views already." By noon, it was up to 10,000. By evening, it had been picked up by the local news station and gone regional. Local business owner defends himself against wealthy developer was the headline, painting me as a working-class hero standing up to entitled rich guys. Derek, meanwhile, had become a laughingstock. The comments on the video were brutal. Dude got dropped by a mechanic. That's what happens when daddy's money can't buy you fighting skills. Porsche boy learned a lesson today. But the real damage came from an unexpected source. That evening, I got a call from Janet Morrison, Derek's ex-wife. "Mr. Brennan, this is Janet Morrison. I saw the video of you and my ex-husband." "Mrs. Morrison, I'm sorry about that. I didn't want—" "Don't apologize. Derek had it coming." Her voice was sharp with years of suppressed anger. "I'm calling because I thought you should know. He's been bragging around town about stealing your wife, telling people at the country club that he's going to rescue her from her blue-collar mistake. Is that right? He's also been lying about his finances. That car dealership he's supposed to be opening? It's all smoke and mirrors. Derek burned through his trust fund years ago, and our divorce settlement cleaned out what was left. He's broke, Mr. Brennan, living on credit and borrowed time." This was interesting. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Derek destroyed our marriage with his arrogance and his affairs. He cost me my house, my friends, my social standing. If your wife thinks she's trading up, she's in for a rude awakening." Janet Morrison had clearly been waiting years for her chance at revenge. The video of Derek getting humiliated had given her the opening she needed. "There's something else," she continued. "Derek's been telling people he's going to run you out of business. He's been calling in favors, trying to get your shop's permits pulled, your insurance canceled. He's obsessed with destroying you. Let him try. He's more dangerous than you think. When Derek feels cornered, he gets vicious. Just be careful." After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about what Janet had told me. Derek was broke, desperate, and apparently willing to use whatever connections he had left to come after me. That made him dangerous in a different way than I'd expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "We need to talk. It's important." I ignored it. An hour later, Emma showed up at my door, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, you have to help Mom." "What's wrong?" "She's at the hotel bar, drunk, really drunk. She's making a scene, telling everyone about Derek, about you, about the divorce. The manager threatened to kick her out." I grabbed my keys. Whatever Lisa had done to me, I couldn't let Emma see her mother destroy herself in public. The Marriott bar was crowded for a Tuesday night, full of business travelers and locals looking for a drink after work. I found Lisa at the far end of the bar, slumped over a martini, her designer suit wrinkled and stained. "Lisa?" She looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. "Michael, my husband, everyone, the man who threw me out like garbage." The bartender, a young guy who looked embarrassed by the situation, leaned over. "Sir, she's been here for 3 hours. I've cut her off, but she won't leave. I'll handle it." I helped Lisa off her bar stool, her legs unsteady beneath her. She'd lost weight in the past week, her face gaunt and hollow. The stress was eating her alive. "Where's Derek?" I asked as I guided her toward the exit. "Derek." She laughed bitterly. "Derek doesn't want damaged goods. Derek wants the fantasy, not the reality." "What happened?" "He told me I was too complicated for him right now. Said maybe we should wait until after my divorce is final, until the drama dies down." She stumbled, and I caught her arm. 20 years I wasted on you, and he doesn't even want me." We made it to the lobby before she started crying again. Big, ugly sobs that drew stares from other guests. I found a quiet corner and sat her down in a leather chair. "Lisa, you need help. Professional help. I need my life back. I need my house, my daughter, my husband. You threw all that away for a fantasy." "I know." The words came out as a wail. "I know, okay? I was stupid and cruel, and I destroyed everything good in my life for a man who doesn't even want me. Are you happy now?" Looking at her, Drunk, broken, desperate, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction or vindication, but pity. Lisa had gambled everything on a delusion and lost spectacularly. She was getting exactly what she deserved, but there was no joy in watching her self-destruct. "Emma's worried about you," I said. "Emma hates me. My own daughter hates me because I'm a selfish witch who humiliated her father in public." "She doesn't hate you. She's confused and hurt, but she doesn't hate you." Lisa looked up at me with something approaching hope. "Does that mean... could we try again? Could you forgive me?" The question hung between us like a loaded gun. Part of me, the part that remembered 20 years of marriage, of shared history, of love that had slowly died under the weight of resentment and indifference, wanted to say yes, wanted to take her home, help her get sober, try to rebuild what we'd lost. But I couldn't forget the smirk, couldn't forget the casual cruelty of her words, the public humiliation, the way she'd dismissed our entire marriage as settling for less than she deserved. "No," I said quietly. "We're done, Lisa. We were done the moment you said you'd choose Derek over me." She started crying again, but I didn't comfort her. Instead, I called her parents and waited until Charles arrived to take her home. He looked older than his 70 years, worn down by his daughter's public meltdown. "Thank you for calling," he said, as he helped Lisa to his car. "Patricia and we're ashamed of what she's put you through. Take care of her, Charles. She needs help." "We know. We've already found a treatment center, alcohol counseling, therapy, the works." I watched them drive away, then went home to my quiet house. Emma was waiting for me, curled up on the couch with a cup of tea. "How is she?" Emma asked. "She'll be okay. Your grandparents are going to get her some help." "And Derek?" "Derek's out of the picture." Emma nodded, relief visible on her young face. "Good. I never liked him anyway." We sat together in comfortable silence, father and daughter, survivors of a marriage that had imploded in spectacular fashion. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the divorce proceedings, the custody arrangements, the slow process of rebuilding our lives. But tonight, we were okay. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but this isn't over. I'm going to destroy you." Derek, apparently, wasn't handling his rejection well either. I showed the text to Emma, who rolled her eyes. "He's pathetic." "Yeah, he is. But pathetic men could be dangerous when cornered." Derek had lost his chance with Lisa, his reputation, and his dignity. He had nothing left to lose, which made him unpredictable. I made a mental note to be more careful, to watch my back, because Derek Morrison struck me as the type who'd rather burn everything down than admit defeat, and I had a feeling he was just getting started. Derek's campaign against me started small. A call to the health department about unsanitary conditions at my shop that resulted in a surprise inspection. An anonymous tip to the EPA about improper disposal of automotive fluids that brought federal inspectors to my door. A complaint to the Better Business Bureau about fraudulent business practices that required hours of paperwork to resolve. All the inspections came back clean. I'd been running my business by the book for 20 years, but they were designed to harass me, cost me time and money, make my life difficult. Derek was using his remaining connections to wage a war of attrition. The final straw came 2 weeks later. I was closing up the shop on a Friday evening when 3 men in expensive suits walked through my bay doors. They looked like lawyers or accountants, the kind of guys who made their living shuffling papers and intimidating people. "Michael Brennan?" The lead man was tall and thin with silver hair and cold gray eyes. "That's me." "Marcus Webb, Webb and Associates. We represent the Westchester County Development Authority. We're here to discuss your lease." I'd owned this building for 15 years, but the land underneath was leased from the county, a sweetheart deal I'd negotiated when the area was still considered undesirable. Now, with development creeping in from all sides, the property was worth 10 times what I was paying. What about my lease? Webb smiled without warmth. There's been a review of county land use policies. This area has been rezoned for mixed-use development. Your lease is being terminated. He handed me a thick manila envelope. 30 days notice. You'll need to vacate the premises by the end of next month. That's impossible. I have a 5-year lease with 3 years remaining. Check Section 12, subsection 4. The county reserves the right to terminate any lease for development purposes with 30 days notice. I'd signed that lease when I was desperate to expand my business, and I'd been so grateful for the opportunity that I hadn't read the fine print carefully. Now, it was coming back to haunt me. Who's the developer? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Morrison Properties, LLC. Derek. The bastard was using his family's old connections to steal my business location out from under me. Without this shop, I'd lose most of my customers, my equipment, my livelihood. It was a brilliant move, legal, devastating, and perfectly timed to coincide with my divorce proceedings. This is personal, I said. Webb shrugged. Business is business, Mr. Brennan. You have 30 days. After they left, I sat in my office staring at the termination notice. Derek had found the one weapon that could actually hurt me, my business. He was going to force me out, then probably turn the property into luxury condos or upscale retail. The kind of development that would erase places like mine from the neighborhood. I called David Kellerman, my lawyer. Can they do this? Legally? Yes. The county has broad powers when it comes to development. If they want your land for a project that serves the public good, they can terminate your lease. What about fighting it? You could try, but it would take years and cost more than you can afford. Even if you won, they'd just find another way to get rid of you. I hung up feeling defeated for the first time since this whole mess started. Derek had outmaneuvered me, used his connections and his family's influence to hit me where it would hurt most. In 30 days, I'd be out of business. That weekend, Emma found me in my workshop, half-heartedly organizing tools I might have to sell. Dad, what's wrong? I told her about the lease termination, about Derek's plan to destroy my business. Emma listened with the kind of focused attention she usually reserved for her favorite TV shows. So he's going to tear down your shop and build condos? That's the plan. And Mom doesn't know about this? I haven't told her. Emma was quiet for a long moment, then smiled in a way that reminded me of her mother at her most devious. I have an idea. Emma, I don't want you involved in this. Too late. I'm already involved. Derek hurt you, which means he hurt me too. And I know something about him that might help. What? Remember when Mom was drunk at the hotel? She told me things. About Derek, about his money problems, about why he really came back to town. I set down the wrench I'd been holding. What kind of things? Derek's not just broke, he's in serious debt. Gambling debts, from what Mom said. He owes money to some very bad people, and they're not the type to accept payment plans. How does that help us? Because Derek's development project? It's not his money. He's fronting for investors, promising them huge returns on luxury condos. But what if those investors found out he's been lying about his finances? What if they discovered he's not the successful businessman he claims to be? Emma pulled out her phone and showed me a series of screenshots, social media posts, news articles, court documents she'd found online. Derek Morrison, arrested for assault in Miami 2 years ago. Derek Morrison sued by 3 different creditors last year. Derek Morrison's car dealership in Florida closed after allegations of fraud. She scrolled through more documents. He's not a successful developer, Dad. He's a con man who's been running from his problems his whole life. I stared at the evidence my 17-year-old daughter had compiled. How did you find all this? I'm good at research, and I was motivated. The information was damning, but I wasn't sure how to use it. Even if we expose him, the lease termination is still legal. Maybe. But what if his investors pulled out? What if the county discovered that Morrison Properties is basically a shell company run by a broke con man? Wouldn't they have to reconsider the development project? Emma was right. If Derek's financing fell through, the whole development would collapse. The county wouldn't terminate my lease for a project that didn't exist. There's something else, Emma said. I know who Derek's main investor is. Who? Janet Morrison, his ex-wife. That didn't make sense. Why would she invest with him after their divorce? She wouldn't. But Derek's been forging documents, using her name and credit without permission. I found loan applications, partnership agreements, all with her signature. Except Janet Morrison told you she was broke after the divorce, right? The pieces clicked into place. Derek was using his ex-wife's identity to secure financing for his development project. It was fraud on a massive scale, and when it came to light, it would destroy him completely. Emma, this is dangerous. If Derek finds out you've been investigating him, he won't. But Dad, we have to do something. We can't let him destroy your business and get away with it. I looked at my daughter, brilliant, determined, fierce in her loyalty, and felt a surge of pride. She was everything her mother could have been if Lisa hadn't let bitterness and entitlement poison her heart. Okay, I said, but we do this right. Legal, careful, by the book. Emma grinned. I already called Janet Morrison. She wants to meet with us tomorrow. The next morning, Janet Morrison arrived at my house driving a 10-year-old Honda, a far cry from the luxury lifestyle she'd once enjoyed. She was a handsome woman in her 40s, well-dressed but not flashy, with the kind of quiet dignity that comes from surviving betrayal and rebuilding your life. Mr. Brennan, thank you for agreeing to see me. We sat in my kitchen while Emma presented her research. Janet's face grew paler with each document, each forged signature, each fraudulent loan application. I had no idea, she said finally. I knew Derek was desperate, but I never imagined he'd stoop to identity theft. The question is, what do we do about it? I said. Janet was quiet for a long moment, studying the evidence. Then she looked up with steel in her eyes. We destroy him. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Janet would contact Derek's investors directly, inform them that she'd never authorized the use of her name or credit for the Morrison Properties development. She'd provide documentation proving the fraud, then file criminal charges for identity theft and forgery. Meanwhile, I would present the evidence to the County Development Authority, showing them that their chosen developer was a con man using fraudulent financing. The development project would collapse, my lease termination would be reversed, and Derek would face serious criminal charges. There's one problem, Janet said. Derek's not stupid. When this comes to light, he'll run. He's done it before. Miami, Atlanta, Phoenix. He's got fake IDs, offshore accounts, a whole escape plan ready to go. So we make sure he can't run, Emma said. Janet and I looked at her. The gambling debts Mom mentioned. If Derek owes money to dangerous people, and if those people found out he was planning to skip town with their money. Emma, no, I said firmly. We're not involving criminals in this. We don't have to involve them directly, but if word got out that Derek was planning to leave town, if his creditors heard rumors about him liquidating assets and preparing to disappear, Janet smiled grimly. They'd make sure he stayed put until he paid what he owed. It was risky, but it might work. If Derek's criminal creditors thought he was trying to run out on his debts, they'd keep him in town long enough for the legal system to catch up with him. I know people, Janet said quietly, from Derek's gambling days, people who might be very interested to know that he's been planning an exit strategy. We spent the rest of the morning refining the plan, coordinating timing, making sure every detail was perfect. By noon, we were ready to execute Derek Morrison's complete and total destruction. Emma looked at me with satisfaction. Mom always said I was too much like you. Guess she was right. I hugged my daughter, proud of her brilliance and her loyalty, grateful that at least one good thing had come from my marriage to Lisa. Tomorrow, Derek Morrison would discover that threatening my family and my business was the biggest mistake of his life, and this time, there would be no escape. The dominoes started falling on Monday morning. Janet Morrison walked into the offices of Hartwell, Crane and Associates, Lisa's old law firm, carrying a briefcase full of evidence. She requested an immediate meeting with the senior partners, claiming she had information about fraudulent activities involving one of their former associates. While Janet was destroying Derek's credibility with his investors, I was at the county offices presenting my own evidence to Marcus Webb and the Development Authority. Webb's confident smirk disappeared as I laid out document after document proving that Morrison Properties was a fraud. "These loan applications," I said, spreading them across his desk, "all bear Janet Morrison's signature, except Mrs. Morrison never signed them, never authorized them, and has no financial involvement with the company." Webb studied the documents, his face growing paler by the minute. "How do you know they're forged?" "Because Mrs. Morrison is filing criminal charges this morning. Identity theft, forgery, fraud. Your Golden Boy developer is looking at serious prison time." I pulled out another folder. This is Derek Morrison's real financial history. Bankruptcies, lawsuits, criminal charges in 3 different states. The man you trusted to develop county land is a career con artist. Webb was frantically making phone calls now, trying to reach Derek, trying to contact the other investors, trying to figure out how badly the county had been fooled. I left him to his panic and drove back to my shop, where Emma was waiting with updates. "Janet's meeting went great," she reported. "The law firm is furious. Apparently Derek used their letterhead on some of his fraudulent documents. They're talking about criminal charges of their own." "What about Derek? Has he figured out what's happening yet?" "Oh, he knows. Janet called him an hour ago and told him exactly what she was doing. He's been trying to reach his investors, but they're all refusing to take his calls." I felt a grim satisfaction. Derek had spent weeks systematically trying to destroy my life, using his connections and his family's influence to crush me. Now he was discovering how quickly those same connections could turn against him. My phone rang. It was David Kellerman. "Mike, I just got off the phone with the county. They're reversing the lease termination immediately. Apparently there were some irregularities with the development project." "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind that involve criminal fraud charges. Your lease is safe, and Derek Morrison is about to have a very bad day." That afternoon, Derek showed up at my shop for the second time. But this Derek was different from the confident man who'd threatened me 3 weeks earlier. This Derek looked desperate, cornered, dangerous. He didn't bother with the Porsche this time, probably couldn't afford the gas. Instead, he arrived in a rental car, his expensive suit replaced by jeans and a wrinkled shirt. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You bastard," he said, storming into my shop. "You destroyed everything." I was working under the hood of a Chevy pickup, and I didn't bother to look up. "You destroyed yourself, Derek. I just helped people see who you really are. Janet was supposed to be out of my life. She had no right to interfere. She had every right when you started forging her signature on loan documents." Derek's face was red with rage and desperation. "You have no idea what you've done. The people I owe money to, they don't care about legal technicalities. They want their money, and if I can't pay, maybe you should have thought of that before you tried to steal my business. I needed that development deal. It was my only way out." I finally looked up from the engine. "Your only way out of what? The gambling debts? The fraud charges? The fact that you're a career criminal who's been running cons your whole life?" Derek pulled out his phone and showed me a series of text messages. They were short, threatening, and very specific about what would happen to him if he didn't pay what he owed. "These people don't negotiate," he said. "They don't accept excuses. If I can't come up with $2 million by Friday, I'm dead. That's not my problem." It will be when they come looking for anyone associated with me. Your wife, your daughter, you. They don't care about collateral damage. The threat hit me like a physical blow. Derek wasn't just desperate. He was trying to drag me and my family down with him. Lisa's not my wife anymore, I said. And if you think threatening my daughter is going to help your situation, you're even dumber than I thought. Derek laughed bitterly. Lisa's not safe either. She's been calling me, begging me to take her back, promising she'll leave you for good if I just give her another chance. She has no idea what kind of danger she's in. My blood ran cold. Lisa might have betrayed me, humiliated me, chosen another man over our marriage, but she was still Emma's mother. And Emma would never forgive me if something happened to Lisa because of my war with Derek. Where is she now? Hotel bar, same as always, drinking herself to death and telling anyone who'll listen about our great love story. Derek's voice was full of contempt. She thinks I'm going to rescue her. She has no idea that I'm the one who needs rescuing. I grabbed my keys. Stay away from my family, Derek, all of them. Or what? You'll hit me again? That won't help when my creditors come calling. I left him standing in my shop and drove to the Marriott. Lisa was exactly where Derek had said she'd be, hunched over a martini at the far end of the bar. She looked even worse than the last time I'd seen her, thinner, paler, her hands shaking as she lifted her glass. Michael? She looked up at me with surprise and hope. What are you doing here? We need to talk, privately. I helped her off the bar stool and guided her to a quiet corner of the lobby. She was drunk, but not as badly as before. Functional drunk, the kind that comes from steady drinking rather than binge episodes. Lisa, you need to stay away from Derek Morrison. She laughed. Derek doesn't want anything to do with me. He made that very clear. That's not what I mean. Derek's in serious trouble, criminal trouble. Dangerous people are looking for him, and anyone associated with him could get hurt. What kind of trouble? I told her about the fraud charges, the gambling debts, the threats Derek had received. Lisa's face grew paler with each detail. $2 million? She whispered. Maybe more. The point is, Derek's desperate and dangerous. He's already threatened Emma and me. I won't let him drag you into this mess. Lisa was quiet for a long moment, processing what I'd told her. Finally, she looked up at me with something approaching clarity. You came to warn me. After everything I've done to you, to our marriage, to our family, you came to warn me. You're Emma's mother. That still means something. Tears started flowing down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Michael. For everything. For the dinner. For the things I said, for choosing Derek over you. I was angry and stupid, and I destroyed the best thing in my life. Lisa, no. Let me finish. I know it's too late for us. I know I can't undo what I did. But thank you for warning me. Thank you for still caring enough to protect me. We sat in silence for a few minutes, two people who'd once loved each other trying to find their way through the wreckage of their marriage. What happens now? Lisa asked. You get help, real help. Check into that treatment center your parents found. Get sober, get therapy, figure out how to be the mother Emma deserves. And Derek? Derek's not your problem anymore. He's not anyone's problem for much longer. I left Lisa in the lobby and drove home, where Emma was waiting with dinner and more updates on Derek's rapidly deteriorating situation. His investors have all pulled out, she reported. The development project is officially dead, and Janet filed criminal charges this afternoon. Fraud, identity theft, forgery. There's a warrant out for his arrest. What about his gambling debts? Emma's smile was cold and satisfied. Funny you should ask. Apparently word got out that Derek was planning to skip town. His creditors have been very proactive about making sure he stays local. Meaning? Meaning Derek Morrison isn't going anywhere, ever. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is over. I'm done fighting. You win. It was Derek, finally admitting defeat. But I had a feeling his surrender was too little, too late. The forces he'd set in motion, the criminal charges, the angry investors, the dangerous creditors, were beyond his control now. Derek Morrison had gambled everything on destroying me and stealing my business. Instead, he'd destroyed himself, and tomorrow, the whole town would know exactly what kind of man Lisa had been willing to leave me for. Derek Morrison was found in his hotel room 3 days later. The official cause of death was a heart attack, brought on by stress and cocaine use. The unofficial story, whispered in bars and coffee shops throughout the county, was that Derek's gambling creditors had decided to cut their losses rather than wait for repayment. I learned about it from Officer Martinez, who stopped by my shop Thursday morning with the news. "Thought you should know," he said. "Morrison's dead. Found him yesterday morning at the extended stay on Route 9. "Natural causes?" Martinez shrugged. "That's what the coroner's report will say. But between you and me, Derek Morrison had a lot of enemies. Could have been the stress that killed him. Could have been something else. We'll never know for sure." I felt a complex mix of emotions, relief that the threat to my family was over, but also a strange sadness. Derek had been a pathetic man who'd made terrible choices, but he'd still been a human being. His death felt like the end of a story that had gone on too long and hurt too many people. What happens to the fraud charges? Case closed. Can't prosecute a dead man. After Martinez left, I called Emma to tell her the news. She was quiet for a long moment. "Is it wrong that I don't feel bad about it?" she asked. "No. Derek made his choices. He threatened our family, tried to destroy our business, hurt a lot of people. The world's probably better off without him." "What about Mom?" That was a harder question. Lisa had built her entire fantasy around Derek, convinced herself that he represented everything she'd given up when she married me. His death would force her to confront the reality of what she'd thrown away. "Your mom will have to process this on her own. She's in treatment now, getting the help she needs. This might actually be good for her recovery. One less delusion to cling to." Emma was quiet again. Finally, she said, "Dad, are you happy with how everything turned out?" I thought about it. My marriage was over. My wife was in rehab. My business had been threatened, and a man was dead. But Emma and I were closer than ever. My shop was secure, and I was free from a relationship that had been slowly poisoning both of us. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." Derek's funeral was held the following Tuesday at St. Mary's Catholic Church. I didn't attend, but Emma did, more out of curiosity than respect. She reported that only about 20 people showed up, a few distant relatives, some former business associates, and Lisa. "Mom looked terrible," Emma told me afterward. "Like she'd been crying for days. She kept staring at the casket like she couldn't believe he was really gone." "How did she seem otherwise?" "Sober, sad but sober. She asked about you." "What did you tell her?" "That you were doing well, that the shop was busy, that you'd been working on the old Mustang in your spare time. Normal stuff." Lisa and I hadn't spoken since the night I'd warned her about Derek. The divorce had been finalized while she was in treatment, a quiet legal proceeding that dissolved 20 years of marriage with a judge's signature. She'd gotten a small settlement, enough to start over, but not enough to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. 2 weeks after Derek's funeral, Lisa showed up at my shop. She looked different, healthier, cleaner, more like the woman I'd married 20 years earlier. Her hair was shorter, her clothes simpler, her makeup minimal. She looked like someone who'd been through hell and come out the other side. "Hello, Michael." "Lisa, how are you doing?" "Better, 60 days sober as of yesterday." She managed a small smile. "The treatment center helped a lot. Therapy, group sessions, learning to deal with my problems instead of drinking them away." "I'm glad." We stood there awkwardly, two people who'd once shared everything now struggling to make small talk. "I wanted to thank you," she said finally, "for warning me about Derek, for protecting Emma, for for not letting me destroy myself completely. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. I know what I put you through, what I put Emma through, the things I said at that dinner. She shook her head. I was cruel and selfish, and I deserved everything that happened to me. Lisa. No, let me finish. I've had a lot of time to think about what went wrong with our marriage, with my life. I blamed you for holding me back, for not being exciting enough, for not giving me the life I thought I deserved. But the truth is, I was the problem. I was never satisfied, never grateful, never willing to appreciate what I had. Tears were flowing down her cheeks now, but she kept talking. You were a good husband, Michael. You worked hard. You provided for our family. You loved Emma and me even when we didn't deserve it. And I threw it all away for a fantasy, for a man who didn't even want me. Derek's gone now. I know. And I know it's too late for us. I know I can't undo what I did, can't take back the things I said. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry for everything. I looked at this woman I'd once loved, this broken person who was trying to put herself back together, and felt something I hadn't expected. Forgiveness. I accept your apology, Lisa, and for what it's worth, I hope you find happiness. Real happiness, not the fantasy kind. She smiled through her tears. Thank you. That means more than you know. Lisa left after that, driving away in a modest Honda that was a far cry from the BMW she'd once insisted on. I never saw her again, though Emma visited her regularly and kept me updated on her progress. Lisa found a job at a small law firm in the next county, doing family law and divorce cases. She rented a one-bedroom apartment, joined AA, and slowly rebuilt her life. She never remarried, never found another Derek to chase. Instead, she learned to be content with ordinary happiness, with the quiet satisfaction of work well done, and relationships based on respect rather than fantasy. Emma graduated high school that spring and decided to attend the local community college, partly to save money and partly to stay close to home. She was thinking about studying business, maybe taking over the shop someday. The idea of my daughter following in my footsteps filled me with pride. As for me, I kept working, kept building my business, kept enjoying the peace of a life without drama. I dated occasionally, nothing serious, just dinner and movies with women who appreciated a man who showed up when he said he would, and meant what he said. Sometimes, late at night in my quiet house, I thought about that dinner at the Hartwells' house, about Lisa's smirk when she said she'd choose Derek over me. At the time, it had felt like the end of the world. Now I realized it was actually the beginning of a better one. Lisa had done me a favor that night, though she didn't know it. She'd shown me exactly who she was, exactly what our marriage had become, exactly why I deserved better. Her moment of cruel honesty had set me free. 6 months later, I was closing up the shop on a Friday evening when Emma stopped by with coffee and donuts from the bakery down the street. Good week? She asked, settling into the chair across from my desk. Great week. 3 new customers, 2 referrals, and old Mrs. Patterson finally let me fix that rattling in her Buick. Emma laughed. She's been complaining about that rattle for 2 years. Sometimes people need time to trust you. We sat in comfortable silence, eating donuts and watching the sun set through the windows of my shop. This was happiness, I realized, not the dramatic, passionate kind that Lisa had always chased, but the quiet, steady kind that came from building something worthwhile and sharing it with people you loved. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw your ad in the paper. Can you look at my transmission? It's making a weird noise. A new customer. Someone who needed help with their car. Someone who would trust me to do good work at a fair price, to treat them with respect, to be the kind of man who showed up when he said he would. I texted back, "Bring it in Monday morning. We'll take good care of you." Because that's what I did. I took care of people, fixed their problems, help them get back on the road. It wasn't glamorous or exciting, but it was honest work that made the world a little better. And after everything I'd been through, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.